And interestingly, that very simple phrase began to help me to kind of reset myself instead of thinking, oh my God, what if? What if it happens again? Or what if they don't buy? Or what if, all those things. I always have to kind of give myself that fresh reset of this time is different. And I have exactly what they need.
You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 395. And today, my guest is going to inspire you to fall in love with sales, even if selling feels a little cringy. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hi there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's your host, Melanie Benson, and I help expert entrepreneurs achieve 5- and 6-figure months consistently as a recognized expert. And today, we're going to tackle one of the tenets of reaching high 5- and 6-, maybe even 7-figure months by falling in love with selling. I'm bringing you one of my business besties who I just adore, and she is so brilliant at this. This is a must-listen conversation. Now, I'll give you a little sneak preview. One of the things we're talking about in this episode has a lot to do with our thinking, our mindset, our way of seeing things that have to be done in business, or building a muscle that makes us masterful at the things that we really do have to do. And I love mindset. It's one of my favorite energies to work with a client around, because sometimes the very reason why you haven't taken that big leap, you haven't been able to hit those next levels of success, has a lot to do with the junk that's happening in your head. As a matter of fact, I did an entire event all around this earlier this year. It's called the Bold Growth Event, and I've made the recordings available. So if that's something that you believe it's time for a big, bold leap, but something's holding you back, maybe it's the strategy, maybe it's your focus, maybe it's knowing exactly what to do, I think you're going to get a lot out of this event. Head to boldgrowthevent.com. I'll link that up in the show notes for you, and access those recordings. And then give me a big shout out and let me know what's the big, bold growth step you're going to take. Now, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back, Amplifiers. Well, I got a treat for you today, because you're about ready to fall in love with sales, even if you're introverted and you cringe at the thought of selling. And heck, if you already love selling, there's probably a few gems in here for you as well. Let me introduce you to someone who is just extraordinary. Her name is Tish Times. She's the host of the Sold Out Sales podcast and the visionary behind the Tish Times Sales Agency, a renowned expert in driving remarkable sales conversions with her clients. Now, she's been doing this for 15 years. She's revolutionized and streamlined the sales processes inside businesses, enabling them to establish dynamic revenue-generating connections, fill their events, and accelerate their program enrollments. You're going to have to check out this podcast, because guess who else is on it? Moi. And her books, like Networking is Not a One-Night Stand, which I love that title. And she's also got some other ones like the Unstoppable Confidence Networking Playbook and her new Networking and Sales Planner. But most importantly, this woman has become one of my business besties and is my confidant. And I'm so thrilled to share her with you today. Welcome, Tish.
Yay. I'm so excited. Listening to you, I'm just like, let's talk. I'm so excited.
You're like, oh my God, that's me. That's how I always feel when someone else introduces me. I'm like, oh my God, they're talking about me. That's so cool.
So amazing.
Well, and I love that we're going to talk about sales today. This is something you and I kind of bonded over a selling process. We were in a program together that was really about ramping up sales and just like going for the hot, like bottom line. Like we were just really stretching and growing together. And it was so fun. And this is what you do every day. You are teaching people how to sell with more confidence, no matter what their relationship to selling is. And so I thought, let's start with I mean, you have lots of conversations with entrepreneurs of all kinds, business owners, CEOs, like, and coaches. Like, why do you think they struggle with selling more right now?
Ah, first of all, it's interesting because the people that I meet and have the privilege of working with, Melanie, they are fantastic at the work that they do. They're normally genius at their craft, right? And
Mhm.
I think on some level, they believe that sales is separate from who they are and that they have to either be more robotic, they have to come up with this script that's going to cause people to say yes to certain things. And I think the thing that most successful entrepreneurs miss is that people buy them, they fall in love with them, and they're obviously intrigued by what they have to offer. And instead of just being that person and just making sure that you're providing a solution for that person, you feel like you go into selling mode, which is why people stumble over sales conversations. They feel like they don't have the tools or the language to be able to sell. But in all honesty, it's just being yourself and being able to invite someone into a solution that they're probably already looking for.
Yeah. I think that's the secret right there is they're already looking for a solution if they're in a conversation with you.
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
they're not, the sales probably isn't relevant at that point. So it's
exactly.
more about what? It's more about connection building at that point.
Exactly. I just think that people are either, again, they begin to stumble or say crazy, weird things that make everything really awkward, or they just don't
Mhm.
ask at all. I think that
Mhm.
happens more often than not. I talk to specifically women entrepreneurs who will say, I just don't know what to say. So I don't ask for the sell. And I'm like, you were already in the sales conversation, in all honesty. You distracted yourself because your fears became bigger than the need that that person already expressed to you. That's a problem. It is.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. I love the nuggets that you drop. That's good. And I maybe you said this word and I missed it, but you kind of coined this phrase of people who are reluctant
Yes.
sellers.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Yeah, and that's the person. And this person for me actually has a name. Literally, it's based on a client that I've had from years ago. But it's the person who is good at what they do once again, but they're just very hesitant. There's a story, right? A story playing in their mind telling them that they're not good enough, telling them that they don't have the words, that they're, maybe they made too many mistakes, maybe their business isn't big enough or ready and all of these things, and it prevents them from opening their mouth and inviting people into that solution. So it's not even that they necessarily hate sales, though there are those, but most of the time they're just battling against that voice telling them that they can't do it, so that they're hesitant, they're reluctant to actually ask for the sell.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think, and maybe you've said this already, but I'm kind of curious, when you think about the most important elements of selling,
Mhm.
and selling is the conversation or mechanism where a sale is made, right?
Right.
What is the most important part of that process for the
Mm.
entrepreneur?
So I really think that people assume that when we hear the phrase follow up, we think that it happens after the sell. And that's not necessarily the case. So I say follow up, and the reason I say it is because it kind of happens pre-sale. We position ourselves to be able to engage that conversation. We position ourselves to be able to have a powerful sales conversation, and then we have both the technology and the processes in place so that if that sale doesn't close on the very first conversations, which sometimes it does, but frequently it doesn't, we don't have always the processes and the technology in place to make it easy to stay in touch so that when the time is right, that person is able and ready to say yes. I wish I had a dime, even a penny, for every person who says that, it didn't close because, I call them a couple of times and they didn't want it, or they didn't respond to me. They didn't respond to my email. They didn't blah, 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 fill in the blank. I'm like, man, but if you had some things in place to make sure that you can stay at the forefront of their mind instead of falling to the very back of their priority list, you can close more sales. So it may seem like an afterthought, but it is a huge part of the sales process. And it's one of the primary ways we close more sales is that people see that staying in touch. They see that
Mhm.
top of mind behavior, and that makes a big difference for most people.
Can we lean into that a little
Yeah,
more?
for
Because I
sure.
know for me, this was my greatest learning opportunity because I would make up all these stories about, oh, they never responded and blah, 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 blah. And then I was in my head, and then I'm like, oh, it's awkward. I don't want to be salesy, right? Or I don't want to be pushy. We come
Right?
up with all of these things in our head, and or we just literally don't know, well, what's an appropriate way to follow up without being that, and let's just call it what it is, the cold DMer who's
Yes.
and or emailer who
Hmm.
shows up your inbox going knock knock, hey, you never responded.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna stop emailing you now. I'm like, yeah, cool, do it because I didn't invite this in the first place, right? So what's the mechanism that allows us to follow up in a powerful way that's not that creepy thing we all want to avoid?
Yeah, I love that. There's a couple of answers to that. I'm going to give you the concise version, obviously, but the first thing is that establishing permission at the forefront. So one of the things that I do often when I talk to someone is I ask them. I'll say something like, "Hey, Melanie, it sounds like this is something you're really thinking about. I want to ask you permission for this. If this is something that really makes sense to you and you feel like it's a great deal, would you be willing to give me a yes or a no? Would you be willing to, if I call you back to check in, would you be willing to make sure that you respond to me? Because I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to feel stalky. I don't want this to be a weird, awkward kind of thing. Can I have your permission for us to follow up and stay in touch, blah, 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 whatever, right? Would you promise not to ghost me? I make it funny sometimes. Would you promise not to ghost me? And when I get people to buy in that way, believe it or not, they're more likely to actually respond to those things, number one. Number two, is putting the things in place so that you understand both the frequency and the cadence, which with to be able to have those touch points makes a difference too. Because again, if I get 14 phone calls from you in the first week, I'm not responding to you. I'm probably blocking you at that
I was gonna
point.
say block.
That's a block. But
Yeah.
understanding and I'm happy to share it if you'd like. I have a follow-up formula that allows people to know how to do this in a multiple pronged way that doesn't feel weird or creepy or icky. And it doesn't make you feel like you're being a bother and it doesn't make them feel like they're being stalked. And that's the thing, understanding that frequency and those various types of points makes it easier for you. And a lot of those are automated, by the way. So you're not having to physically do anything, but it also makes you feel or makes you seem like you care about the person, not just the sale. And that I think is the biggest difference. It's the way
Mm.
that you're following up, not just that you're doing it, it's the way that you're doing it.
Yeah, that's powerful. Okay, now you said there's some other pieces to this. Is that something as a resource or something you want to unpack right now? Just
Yeah,
so,
well,
because
I
if
mean,
you want to unpack it, let's go for it.
we can totally unpack it, but I definitely have a resource. It's
Okay.
free. And it's a template because it's not a one size fit all. People can actually, customize it for their industry. But sometimes people just need a tool to know, oh, I can do it that way. And I can preload some of these things into my CRM. And, so it makes it a little bit easier. So I'm happy to share that with you.
Yeah.
And you can throw it in your show notes, whatever. People can definitely download that for free. But
Okay. I'm going to hold that till the end. So, a
okay.
little bit of an ethical bribe for you as you're listening in. We're going to get a couple more questions in, and then I'll have to share that resource with you.
Wonderful, wonderful. But again, once again, doing these things in a way that takes it off of your mind, but still keeps you in the forefront of the client makes the big difference. Because what do we say to ourselves? It's like, oh my God, I don't want to call this person again. I don't want to email them again. But generally, if you're doing it right, what happens is they come back to you and go, oh my God, that gift or that resource that you sent to me was gold, opposed to, oh my God, you're calling me again, you're texting me again, you're messaging me again. So there's just some amazing value you could be adding, some education you can be adding that make you feel more like a rock star than a stalker.
Yeah, I like that. I can't believe we've never talked about this before. I'm sitting here going like, this is gold. How has this not come up before? Yes, I think automating it, having it predetermined how you're going to follow up with people is so much better than trying to figure it out in the moment, because let's face it, you're going to get confused, you're going to get conflicted, you don't know what to do, so you don't do any of it, and that's often why your sales suck. right?
No doubt,
So
no doubt, no doubt. You're gonna miss
let's get
something
that in
for
place.
sure.
Okay, good. Resource coming your way, friends. All right. I want to talk a little bit about mindset, Tish.
Yes, yes, yes.
You and I talk a lot about mindset, and I think mindset, it's almost like it's the spark plug of success, right? And it factors into everything we do. How would you say someone, especially maybe someone who's more reluctant to be selling, what's a mindset that they need to be aware of that might be causing procrastination and a shift that if they just make this one shift in the way they think about it, it's going to open up so many sales opportunities?
Wow. So I'm going to share something with you, Melanie. We have not talked about this. I'm going to tell you that right now. No, we haven't talked about this, but it was such a huge game changer for me. I had a coach that's still a dear friend that shared this one thing with me that changed everything because what I was doing is I was going back into my past. I was hooking it and pulling it into my future every single time I needed to have this, a new sales conversation. And what my past was telling me is, you're not good enough. They don't want what you have to offer. You can't do, you can't fulfill what you're promising, all of these things in your head, right? And she said to me this. She said, I want you to begin to tell yourself this one phrase when you have this mind block, basically. She said, tell yourself this time is different. This time is different. And interestingly, that very simple phrase began to help me to kind of reset myself instead of thinking, oh my God, what if? What if it happens again? Or what if they don't buy? Or what if, all those things. I always have to kind of give myself that fresh reset of this time is different. And I have exactly what they need. And it enables me to go into that conversation with a clear, fresh perspective and not go into it with, well, if you can't pay for it, I have a payment plan. If you can't do it now, we can talk back next week. You know what I mean? I was predetermining my own failure and pre-deciding for my clients that they could not buy or they couldn't pay at all or they couldn't buy right now because of my past experiences. And so that reset, whatever that phrase you need to say to yourself to make sure that you're not going into your past and pulling your past into your present, that's what you need to do because I think we're replaying over and over what we've had as failures in previous experiences.
That is so powerful. And I want to pull out a phrase you just said, and I want you, as you're listening in, to really check in with yourself. Are you predetermining for your clients whether or not they will buy, whether they're capable of affording what you have to offer? I have found that is the number one reason the sale does not complete because you may have the worst sales process on the planet. You can still enroll a client if they really want what you have to offer. But if you decide for them that they can't afford it, that they're not capable, whatever, I may not be ready, right? Maybe they don't feel like this is a good fit for them. All of that stuff is noise that you're creating. And it changes the way you interact in that conversation. And it causes the other person to have this unconscious bias towards you that you may not be ready or right for them. When you own it, and I'm sorry, Tish, I'm talking for you right now,
Oh,
but I'm just on fire about this. When you own it, you are fire and they feel that. Sometimes it's an energetic. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Oh my God. Oh, and let me just even take it a step further because I also have had to face my own money stories. Because again, I was projecting my money stories onto other people. So if I felt like there were stories in my history around where I couldn't afford certain things, or I wasn't able to manage certain things, it was always showing up in my conversations. And so we don't realize how our relationship with money, our relationship with rejection, right? Our previous failures, all of those things are playing into our current sales failures, in all honesty. And we're thinking we just can't sell. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if people are like looking at us or not, but I want you to look me in my eye if you're looking at this. And no, you can sell because just like Melanie said, somebody who needs what you have to offer wants to make that transaction with you, wants to have that relationship with you. But you're, again, predetermining that they're not ready, they can't afford it, they have all these other issues. Those are not their issues. They're your issues. And if you'll deal with those issues, your entire sales world will change. I believe it because it's happened for me.
Boom. Love it. So powerful. Okay. You mentioned earlier a resource that's going to help with that follow-up process. Can we share that with our community? And then I got a couple of fun questions I want to ask you, Tish.
For sure. I will, because this was literally off the cuff, but I believe it's tishtimes.com/follow-up formula. But I will send you the link. You can put it in the show notes, and that way they'll have it for sure. Because I did off the cuff that one. I didn't have it prepared for you, but we'll make sure you have the exact link though.
Yeah, in the show notes, whatever the show note says is the right one. So follow the show notes link and we'll make sure you get it because that is going to be pure gold. Thank you, Tish. I'm so excited about that.
For sure.
And, I just have to say that sometimes having somebody who really gets like how to like go from not selling to selling is your most powerful asset. Like that's why I believe everybody at some point should take sales training,
Mhm.
should take get a sales coach, a mentor who really can help you fine tune your process. Because when you learn how to sell with confidence and your mind is plugged into, I am a solution that my right clients need, and
Yeah.
my job is to help them say yes to it, the people that are that good fit. Like that's why you see some of these big name people selling thousands and thousands of dollars a month easily. And if
Yeah.
you're a CEO and you want to take your business to the next level, you're looking to go from early seven figures to multiple seven figures, you got to get people on your team to do this. And I wanted to ask you this earlier, but now is a great place to ask it before I get into my fun questions. This is something you and I have been talking a lot about lately, and that is there are people that businesses have customer facing that may be costing that business more sales. You
Yeah.
really uncovered this as an opportunity for CEOs, people who are outsourcing or having other people deal with the customer directly. What's that about? And tell me, let's just get that unpacked really fast.
Yeah, I mean, the best way I can explain it is an example. I did a training with a spa, a beautiful high-end spa recently, and the massage therapist, for instance, the people at the front desk had no idea that they had a way to impact the bottom line. And just helping them to understand how caring for their clients differently, meaning I care that you're taking care of your body and I want to make sure that we get you scheduled for next month, opposed to just letting them walk out and you don't see them for 4, 5, 6 months, or maybe even a year. Those types of small nuances, those small changes that again don't feel salesy, they really are heartfelt behaviors, really begin to impact the bottom line. And so it's helping your team understand how they interact with those clients, how they ensure that they're not leaving money on the table because they're not following up. They're not inviting that client back in. They're not making sure that those appointments that are broken are kept. And they're not listening for those sales cues. So there are so many things that a business owner can do to help make sure that their team understands their role in part of the sales process. It's so easy, but it's so impactful.
I love that. And it just makes me think of all the places where I go and I have a service and the front desk is trained so well to ask me more questions like, hey, let's get your next appointment on the books. Or I know your esthetician
Mhm.
outlined some products today. Which one would you like? Right. And so
Yeah.
I think it's scripts training process. And that's where you just excel, helping businesses really create those unique processes for their team members to follow. And yeah, like, if they're not aware, they're not
They
gonna
just
do it
don't know.
differently.
Yeah. And I will say this, if they think it's sales, they won't do it. You got to help them to understand that they're really a part of taking care of those clients. They're really a part of the business plan, not feeling like a salesperson. That's what the change is, I believe.
I love that. That's a good reframe. All right, Tish, this is the time where I love asking my amazing human guests to share a little bit about the journey of how they got to where they are today. What I love hearing, because I believe there are several bold moments. Could be a decision, it could be an action, but something that was terrifyingly big, but you did it anyway. What is the boldest thing you did that's helped you amplify the success of your business?
Interestingly, it's not business related though. But it did make a huge difference in the way that I do business, and to be honest with you, the way that I do life. I found a way to overcome my fear of many things, but specifically heights. Starting to hike was a huge endeavor for me because I was afraid of heights. I was afraid of snakes. I didn't like the outdoors. Seriously, all of these things are true. And just you know, going out into the mountains and interacting in a way that made me so uncomfortable at first, it kind of rippled into me being able to face things that were also kind of scary for me. And those things were in business as well. So it wasn't business related, but it absolutely made a huge impact in my entire life, obviously in my business too.
I could see that because I think when you learn how to navigate fear
Yeah.
and you can create a relationship in your or a strategy in your mind to talk through fear when it surfaces, that muscle can play out in any place that you feel fear or you feel like you're holding yourself back from something. So I totally have seen where that happened in my business too. I love that example. That's a new one. I love it.
Yay, good.
And if you look back to from today to the very beginning of starting this business, I'm sure there was an investment that you made or a something you implemented that ended up having a massive impact on your growth. What is that one thing you wish you would have done sooner now that you know how impactful it was?
Speaking. For me
Oh,
speaking, because again, people see me now and they think that I was always this extroverted on stages, talking in front of people all the time, and that was absolutely not me. But when I got on the stage for the first time, I promise you, I felt like I had wings. It was like a new life, and I realized how powerful it was. It wasn't easy to get on that stage, but it's one of the primary ways I get new business. It's one of the
mhm.
primary ways that business gets referred to me. And I feel like I made the biggest impact when I'm able to educate people from a stage. So it's one of my favorite things, and I'm so glad I do it now. I wish I would have started it much earlier in my business.
Yeah, I love that example. And I can see why a lot of people maybe aren't taking those stages, aren't getting their message clear and getting it out there. And it is costing them business and opportunity to connect. And by the way, if you ever get a chance to see Tish speak live, do it. She is so inspiring and so phenomenal and a super powerhouse. So
Thank you.
Tish, my friend, you're such a rock
Yay.
star. I'm so excited to share you with our community of amplifiers. And as you're listening in today, make sure you go get Tish's follow up formula. Again, follow the link below in the show notes and give us a little shout out on social media. Let us know what was an aha, what was something that really opened up some new possibilities for you today. You can share the episode and tag us or just comment on wherever you see this on social or slide into our DMs. But we want to know what was impactful for you today. Thank you so much, Tish.
Thank you for having me, Melanie.
Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. Be sure to join us right now in the Amplify Your Authority community at authorityamplifiers.com, and I'll share my 7 proven tips to be a highly paid expert that stands out in a crowded market. Plus, we're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.